Hey there, this is Scott. Wanted to go through and do part 2 of this video where we get further into how to start a farm stand in 2026. In the last video, we covered the basic things that you need to do right now for a basic business mindset. So your mission, your vision, and your values. You have to know where you're going right now, where you want to go, and honestly, your values, what shapes all of your decisions. So we covered that in the last video, and we also covered the first of the 5-step farm business plan, where we talked about the basic plan, the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions that are necessary for you to answer before you actually launch your farm stand today. So in this video, we're going to go through and cover the products that you would like to sell, the pricing, the setup, and ultimately how to market and grow your business. So thinking about the products, you need to know what you're going to sell. You say, well, what if I don't know? Totally fine. Here's what I want you to do. So pull that notebook back out, pull those pages back out where you were taking notes, and I want you to ask yourself a couple of questions. What do you enjoy doing? Just simply, what do you enjoy doing? Maybe that's spending time outside. Maybe that's reading books. Maybe that's enjoying time with your kids, enjoying time with your husband, spouse, significant other. Maybe you enjoy crafting. Maybe you enjoy cooking or baking. What are the things that you like to do? Then I want you to ask this question: what do you know? What do you know how to do? Because honestly, things that I know how to do, I may not actually enjoy doing. But what are the things you know how to do? The third thing, is what do you like to make? You might be thinking, I don't like to make anything. And that's okay too. But if you enjoy making things, that could be craft items, it could be cosmetics, it could be little bracelets, jewelry, it could be baking of various things. And the last thing I want you to ask yourself is, what are you good at? So just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you like doing it, but just because you enjoy doing it doesn't mean that you're good at it, because everybody has to start somewhere, and that's okay. So think about, maybe that's baked goods. Maybe that is various cosmetics, whether that's, making skincare products, whether that's making lotions or oils, products for your hair. I know I don't really know a lot about that, but I know some beard products. Maybe you raise animals, so you have eggs, you have meat, you have dairy, you enjoy just being outside, you enjoy woodworking. There's a whole bunch of things that you could do, but for right now, I just want you to think about what are the things that you like doing and things that you're good at. You need to think through just 1 to 3 products. These are going to be what you call your anchor products. These are your flagship products, if you will. The things that you maybe want to be known for, but don't make this too complicated. Not at this point. This just needs to be basic stuff here. So 1 to 3 products. I want you to pick products that are easy to make, easy to store. Okay? And again, they have to be legal. They have to be appropriate. You can't go through and produce a custard pie if it's not approved for cottage laws inside of your state. By the way, a custard pie is probably not approved for cottage laws within your state because it requires refrigeration. But think about things that are easy to make. As an example, we have a lavender farm. We have had a farm stand now for 4 years since we started. Why did we start a farm stand? Because we had products, we did not have products. We had plants that we wanted to turn into products, because our customers were telling us, we want non-toxic, we want healthy, we want natural, we want local. Okay, great. Let's figure out what that looks like. We had no clue what we were doing. We didn't know where to start, how to start, where to go. We just continued to ideate or think and plan along the way. So we began with a couple of basic products. We picked first a lavender linen spray. It's a bottle of essentially just distilled water and essential oils that you mix together and you spray on things. You can spray it on your clothes, you can spray it on your towels, on your bedding, spray it around your house, on your furniture, and it just smells good. Some people like to use it as a kind of a post-bath spray because it's non-toxic. It's honestly relatively harmless, but it smells nice. So we started with that. We also took our lavender and we dried it. We would cut it and we would dry it. So we made lavender bundles. Our bundles have since grown in size, but what we started with, we tried using. We also started with a lavender sugar or a syrup kit because cottage laws do not allow you to produce a syrup in our state of Ohio. But if you add pectin, which is just a thickening agent, it suddenly becomes okay to sell because it's now jelly or jam. Make it make sense. I don't know. But we also started with making some oils. We made hair oils. I promise the oils were better. It's not why I don't have hair, I promise. But we used oils for beards. We would make oils for hair. We'd make a few different products like that. That's what we started with because they were easy to make. They were easy to store. And honestly, they were relatively easy to sell. They didn't require like a basic temperature, setup. They could be outside, they could be inside, they could be in a stand on our front porch. They could be kind of in a few different locations. So you first need to determine what products you're going to sell. Again, 1 to 3 products. Don't go anything more than that. Keep it easy while you're starting out. The second thing is you need to know labeling. You have to know labeling. When you sell products, it doesn't matter if it's a food product, if it's a cosmetic product, if it is a cleaning product, whatever it is that you are selling, it has to have a label. The first thing you need to know is what you're going to sell. The second thing is labeling. It does not matter what your product is. It doesn't matter if it's a food product, if it's a cosmetic product, if it is a craft product. You have to have a label on whatever it is that you're selling. If you are selling a cottage food, you need to know the cottage food laws for your state. And I cannot stress that enough. You have to know what those rules look like. I will put a link in the description below for a universal kind of cottage food labeling that would be helpful, hopefully, for you. I'll also put in there a link to our farm stand toolkit that goes a little bit more into labeling, the specific labeling that would be helpful for you. Again, you have to confirm that within your state or within your zoning area, as well as for your product. But if you have a food product, you have to follow basic ag safety or food safety laws. So you're going to have a statement of identity, and that's going to be the name of the food product itself. Some cupcake. All right, or sourdough bread. And then you need to have the net quantity of the contents. And with that, it has to have the net weight. And your ingredient list, which will be the next thing, is going to be the ingredients of the food product listed in descending order. So as an example for bread, we'll use sourdough bread as the example. Flour is going to be your first ingredient because it's the largest thing that's going into that product. Okay? So that's the third thing, the ingredient list. The fourth thing is a statement of responsibility. This is the name and the address of the business. So as an example for us, it would be Abundantly Blessed Farm and then our farm business address. It's going to be necessary. And then the fifth thing is the product is home produced. Your state may have a specific wording for what that has to say, but you have to follow whatever your state says for requirements. You cannot make any health claims. You cannot make any claims of medical need or medical necessity or medical product, for your good. So as an example, if I had we'll just say an essential oil, if I was making or distilling essential oils or hydrosols, it's another kind of really essential oil kind of byproduct, I cannot say on there that this is good for hair growth or this is good for heart health or this is good for fill in the blank. I cannot do that. However, on social media, I can share somebody's testimonial or, for your sourdough bread foodies that are out there, I cannot say that this is good for gut health. But what I can say is if somebody else in their testimonial, in their post, says, I could really eat this bread, it didn't hurt my gut, I can screenshot that and use that. But I cannot make any personal claims. Something to keep in mind. The other thing to remember is cosmetics. Cosmetics, cleaning solutions, anything like that, they are similar, but they're different. So you have to know what your state requires. There are FDA requirements for cosmetics. There are FDA requirements for food. I encourage you to take a look to see what those look like for your area. Typically, you have to include, whether it's food or cosmetics, you have to include some sort of an allergy or safety warning. Okay. The next thing is going to be packaging. How are you going to actually package your product? So you've picked a product, you know who your customer avatar is, your ideal customer. How am I actually going to package this for them? Maybe it's going to be in craft boxes, like brown paper boxes. Maybe it's going to be in paper bags or plastic bags or egg cartons or milk jugs or inside of a cooler with ice packs or whatever. Think about your product. What would be the best packaging for your product? The next thing, so in the last video, we talked about a basic plan. Here we talked about product. Now let's talk about pricing. So your price for your product should always cover your costs and your time. Always. Your product should always cover your costs and your time. And you should always have a profit margin that supports you. So let's use an example here. Just to make this easy, we are going to pick a product. And I know this is going to be, might be high, but we're just going to use this as the example. So we're going to think about a loaf of sourdough bread, okay? Nice, warm, crusty on the outside, soft, buttery, rich on the inside, okay? A nice, just loaf of sourdough bread. And I'm going to imagine that price is $7, okay? That's going to be the end price, but I'll tell you how I get there. So we need to first have kind of a desired margin. We need to have a gross margin for our products. This is different than your net profit for your company, but you need to have a gross profit margin for each of your products. I would argue for 50%, just to make it easy for yourself. And we call this a cost of goods sold, or COGS is another term for it, COGS, cost of goods sold. Again, we're going to use the example that is a 50% profit margin. So assuming, and again, these numbers are just generic, please understand that. But let's assume that your materials cost is $2. So your flour, your butter, your sourdough, your time involved with it, it's all $2. Okay? We're going to assume packaging, just a box or a bag to put it in, is going to be 50 cents. It's probably going to be high, could be lower. Just make it easy. Packaging is 50 cents. Labor is going to be $1. So $1 per unit. Yes, your time is worth something, but when you figure out how much you can actually make in a small period of time or in a large period of time, we're going to just assume that it's going to be $1 per unit for this example. So your COGS, all right, the cost of goods sold is going to be $2 plus 50 cents plus $1 equals $3.50. Okay. When we get the price, what we're going to do is we're going to take that number, $3.50, the COGS, and we're going to divide it by 1 minus your margin. So 1 minus the 50% margin, which is 0.50, equals 0.5. Okay. When you take that, it's going to be $3.50 divided by 0.5 equals $7. Okay. I've got an example in the description below. I think it'll make a little bit more sense as you see it written out, but take a look at the description below. Again, it's a price point of $7. Gross profit margin is about $3.50. So we're going to assume you had $3.50 into the product. You made $3.50. That is your profit margin. That's what you can actually put back in your pocket, but you can't because you're going to reinvest that into your business. And again, the price point is going to be $7. So please understand that is just one example. This can go in many different directions, and it's going to adjust for you. When you think about pricing, remember, we are selling direct. We are selling directly from us to the consumer. So we get to keep more value, more profit in our pockets. We get to do that. The ways that you can improve this is simply to increase the AOV, or the average order value, okay, which is just increasing stuff that they're buying. We can bundle it, or we can reduce the cost of goods sold. We can reduce the COGS. So we go buy cheaper items to put into our products. We like to go through and round our prices to simple numbers just to make pricing easier. It makes it easier on the back end, makes it easier for the customer. It just makes life easier in the long run to keep things simple, whether it's round numbers or not. We can go through and test this by testing different price points, having customers that have different prices overall. And we also want to make sure that we're tracking sales, because when you have your products, you have to know what you're selling. The other thing to keep in mind is taxes. Taxes we're not talking about in here. It's completely different, but you have to account for taxes as well. All right, so we've talked about a product. We've talked about who we're selling it to. We've talked about price. Now let's talk about setup. Please understand, for a basic setup, it doesn't matter if you have just a stand, or look at this, even a stool that you are putting on your porch or in your front yard. You can have that set up. It does not have to be complicated. It can be very, very, very simple. You can have a jar set up with just a jar where they can put their cash. You can have a QR code where they scan that and they can access Venmo or Zelle or Cash App or Apple Pay or Google Pay, or running it through Square so you can do credit cards. There's all kinds of options, okay? But the first thing I want you to think about is liability. And yeah, it's a big word. Unfortunately, we have to talk about it, because anytime you have somebody coming onto your property, there is a problem that somebody could get hurt, and you have a business. If you treat your farm stand as a hobby, that's okay. Your homeowner's insurance, your renter's insurance likely does not cover home-based businesses. And even if your homeowner's insurance or renter's insurance covers a home-based business, it probably doesn't cover people coming on your property to buy goods or products or services from you. Please keep that in mind. So when you have somebody coming on your property, you assume risk. Your risk increases. This does not mean somebody's going to get hurt, but the likelihood for them to get hurt certainly increases. So what kind of insurance do you need? You need general liability insurance. You need business insurance. You need errors and omissions coverage. Again, I'm not an insurance person. I'm not a legal person. You need to talk to an insurance person to figure that out, okay, for you and for your business. People often ask, what kind of security cameras do I need? Do I need to figure out about security? What does that look like? If it's on your front porch, you can set up just a simple little, Ring camera as a doorbell cam and have that there, and it tracks and it records. You can have, Blink cameras, BLINK cameras that you can go through and find on Amazon. I'll have a link for more of our favorite products down below, so you can go through and see those. But at the end of the day, people are buying a relationship from you. Don't get so overwhelmed with a lot of these details that you just feel overwhelmed by all of it. None of this stuff is super complicated, but at the same point, when you set up your farm stand and you set it up as a business and you treat it as a business, it allows you to do something different with your home. It allows you to build a community, build relationships with people. And that's really where we get into the last point here as far as marketing and growing. Because at the end of the day, you are building a relationship with customers. They're finding you. They're finding you online. They're hearing about you. Maybe you go to work with somebody and they heard about you through the grapevine, and now they want to buy your bread, your cupcakes. They want to buy your soap. That's awesome. Being able to build a relationship with a community, with people who buy from you, it's amazing. If you have people that come to you, if you have a home-based setup and you have people who actually want to come shop your farm stand, all right, and I keep referencing this book, I keep pointing at this because this is what our farm stand looked like when we first opened. It was a purple stand. It was made out of scrap lumber. I made it in our driveway. It's not complicated. But how we began growing is we began connecting with people online. We would ask them, what products or services would you like to see at a farm stand in your community? It was a simple question that we asked. And we asked that in multiple groups. What would you like to see offered in your community? And we had lots of people who responded with cookies and cupcakes and soap and salves and tallow and essential oils and flowers and produce and meat and dairy. We had a ton of things that people were throwing at us. We can't possibly offer all of that. But we began building a connection with people. We used Facebook. And if I can encourage you to do this one thing, if you have not launched your farm stand yet, I would encourage you to go into Facebook because it's free and it's the largest social media. It's the largest social media outreach that there is. Go in there and set up a basic profile. It needs to be separate from you. Don't use your personal profile, but set up a business profile. Call it something. You can always change the name later on. Call it, your last name farm stand or your last name bakery stand or something else. And go in there and create 2 weeks. So just one post a day, nothing complicated, but 2 weeks of helpful posts before your launch. If you've not started yet, 2 weeks of helpful content. What I found was that simply by sharing what we did, sharing our story, sharing why we started a farm stand, why we chose the products we did, why we chose the plants we chose, why we wanted to build a community, why that was important to us, people engaged with that. People began to actually interact with that. And after we got Facebook up, then we started growing an email list. And eventually we set up a website for free. And then we set up one where we pay for it. And we just continue to grow and grow and grow because it doesn't need to be this complicated thing. Eventually, if you want to, you can do bundles. You can continue to offer more products. But in the beginning, you just want to have 1 to 3 products. Nothing fancy, nothing complicated. And I say all this because growth happens slowly. We now make multiple 5 figures a year. We didn't have that in the beginning. We started with making a couple $100 and then a couple $1,000. And we continued to grow and we continued to learn and we continued to be energized around that. So in the description below, what I want you to do is take a look at our Facebook group where we will interact with you. We will answer your questions because we would love to learn a little bit more about what things are bothering you in starting your farm stand. If you like a text-based option, our book, How to Start a Farm Stand, is available on Amazon. You can take a look at that in the description below. The other thing that's going to be down there is our digital farm stand toolkit that takes the book and it goes a little bit further than that with actual worksheets, activities, and so on to make things a little bit easier for you to launch your farm stand the right way today. In the next video, we're going to talk about how to start a farm stand without even having a farm. And if that would be interesting for you, I encourage you to take a look at that.